everyone, and welcome to this newest episode of Diversifying Data. I am your host, as always, Rakhi Sharma. I know I say this every single time, but today, it's like a kid before Christmas. Yesterday, I was so excited to have my guest on today. It is Trudy Norris Grey. So thank you so much for joining, firstly, and welcome.
Thank you. I love coming.
Yeah.
I absolutely love coming.
We've really made you put in the work over the last month. You've been in a couple of times to do some talks and some conversations with all of us over here at Kubrick, and we have lapped it up so much that we've got you to come back and do this podcast. You have done so much in your career, and I want to highlight just a few of those key things before we get into inclusion. So Trudy is a pivotal member of the Kubrick Advisory Board for us, an exceptional leader who's had a really great career in, I think, Microsoft, Oracle, AXA, BT. Stop me if I've got any of those wrong. Would you like to add a couple of those to that?
Sun Microsystems.
Brilliant.
Vodafone.
Yep. Brilliant. See, I told you I was not lying about that. But in addition to the work with Kubrick and also such a prolific career in the industry, you are a chair of the UCAS Board of Trustees as well. So firstly, how do you manage it all? How have you managed it all?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure I've ever really think about managing it. I just love what I do.
Yeah.
So everything comes easy, as it were, in terms of putting your time in, because it makes a difference. You know, the work I do around diversity, the work I do around helping others to deliver on their potential. I mean, that's a joy. It's not hard work.
Yeah, and on a very, very, personal note, again, before we start getting more into the inclusion aspects, what has been the biggest driver of, such a, almost call it very corporate career, but then dealing with such a human element of it? How did that all come about for you?
It just feels like, in order to answer that question, I have to tell you a bit of a long story. And
I love a long story, True. I love your long story, so please take your time.
I'll try and make it quick. I'm one of 8 kids. I'm number 7.
Yeah.
And we had a very happy childhood, but we didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be financially independent so I could do what I wanted to do. And I really went chasing money. And I knew somebody who had been an accountant, and I thought, well, they've got more money than I know anybody else has, so I'll do one of those.
Yeah.
And I just alighted. I went down the M4 from Swansea in Wales, and I alighted on this new industry called IT. And I became an accountant there. And I then had a fabulous boss who said, look, you seem to be great with people. I mean, 7 brothers and sisters, you have to get on with quite a few people. And especially when you're one of the youngest. And that was how it happened. It wasn't by design.
Yeah.
It was just in pursuit of independence. And I really, really, really feel very lucky about the circumstances I found myself in. And alighting on an industry that's growing. It's a bit like data. It's growing. Good place to be.
It's a great place to be. It is. And I think that we, part of being within this space that has so much room to grow and evolve and change is that we get to be part of that growth and evolvement and changing of not only the industry, but how the industry behaves, how companies are behaving, how things like diversity are coming to the forefront, and really widely talked about. So I think today's going to be really interesting because it's all about inclusion. So National Inclusion Week is, the theme is take action, make impact. And I wanted to get, first of all, your take on that saying and whether inclusion actually means something different to you than just taking action.
I think there's a few things that you make me think immediately of, and I love the slogan.
Yeah.
So let's be clear why I like the slogan is that in Wales they often say talk's cheap, action makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I think you act your way to the future. You don't talk your way to the future. You take steps towards the future. So I think the slogan is right, and I think it's good to have a slogan that rings in your ears because once you have the chat about it. So what? What are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
And what are we going to do about it? And what outcome would we want? So I think it's important that we think about action in terms of desired outcomes. And then just don't leave it there either is, okay, take time periodically to review. Are we making progress in the direction that we thought? Are we learning good things? Are we learning bad things?
Yeah.
But adjust. and that requires action as well. So I think in all sorts of for all sorts of reasons, it's a good maxim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this, even doing a podcast like this, it's about those actionable steps and learning, but then not only keeping the knowledge to yourself of what you've learned, but disseminating that and allowing people to understand the mechanisms by which to take the action as well. Because sometimes it's just difficult to say, I want to do something. How? Like, how do I make that impact? How do I drive that action?
And I think that's it. Is that first of all, passion will drive.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that you're going in the direction that you want to.
Yeah.
And so sometimes what I do, and others might, is thinking about the desired action and reverse engineer into it.
Yeah.
Is, okay, if I want that, then perhaps I need this and that. Therefore, I'm going to start here and then I'm going to add towards it. And if you can somehow create a story around that resonates with other people, perhaps you'll get like-minded people.
Yeah.
Because you can achieve things on your own, and you should.
Yeah.
But you can achieve more if you do it together.
And I have to ask, actually, genuinely, from you know, you're someone that I admire greatly, and I think that if you've been in the room at all, you know, you've had a very prolific career, you're at the top of your game, you know, board of trustees, working with us. How easy are those conversations in regards to collaboration? How easy is that to facilitate? Are people willing to you know, come to the table and collaborate, or do they expect you to handle everything by yourself?
I think most people do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to get the fishing rod out.
Yeah.
And you have to bring them
Reel
in.
them in, yeah.
Because they might need a little bit of a hand.
Yeah.
Or it may feel like it's outside their comfort zone. But it's very rare that people don't have something to offer.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a challenge I give myself is listen to their agenda. What is it they're saying that they might be interested in that can then somehow be attached to the outcome that you're looking for? So, but that really requires not to push your agenda on them.
Yeah.
Is to listen, and you know that reeling in is about, okay, so this could mean something for them and their desires and their ambition. So how can we do things together to the benefit of all?
Absolutely. I mean, inclusion as a topic it's subjective. So I want to know, because I feel like the people that I speak to all have very similar definitions of what inclusion is, and it's a one-stop shop of just everyone should be included. But that's almost too widespread. What do you think? What does it mean to you to have an inclusive company, or, you know, in the board of trustees, in an inclusive organization? What does that actually mean to you in practice?
In practice, it means I need to understand each individual in the team or in the company or in the organization, and how do I bring the best out of them. For me, inclusion it's about you being Rakhi and me being Trudy. It's not about our backgrounds, although it is about our backgrounds, because it drives us, our societal pressures, our preferences. We have to bring all that to bear for you to feel like you're present and you're valued, and you don't have to be somebody else. It's about you and me then coming and appreciating each other. So yes, I sometimes that feels trite, but I still go with that as a definition. Because it's perhaps too big, but on the other hand, if we start thinking about you as an individual as opposed to us being part of different groups, it just tries to force fit us into being into a construct that isn't really us. Yes, we're women. Yes, we've got careers. Yes, we live in London. But there's so much more to us.
Absolutely.
So I really fundamentally, and you know, my definition of leadership is helping ordinary people do extraordinary things.
I love that. And I remember you said that in the last speech, and that really stuck with me.
But I have to know you in order to bring out the best, because once you're in the zone, there's no stopping you. Absolutely.
And it's the passion that you speak with, and the real, and I know that you and I have spoken offline about, you know, not all, you know, feeling now that at this stage of your life, you're uber confident in who you are, and you've got a really good sense of what you can offer to the table, and you haven't always had that.
No.
So now you're able to foster that out of people, and you've really got a knack for doing that. But those, how do you do that to yourself when you don't always have the confidence, you know, in that arena?
I guess it's to understand that you have value and start believing it. And I think, let me go back to some of the you know, my own instances. I felt I didn't belong. I was in an industry that was very male orientated. Certainly people didn't have an accent. They had very English accents when I came down the M4. I'm tall. Back then I was definitely tall for being a woman.
Oh no, you are tall. I can confirm. I am small, but you are tall.
So I just felt I you know, somebody's going to catch me out here. I really don't belong.
Right.
And yet, you know, I would have bosses who would say, "Can you help me with this?" And I remember one day I just had my first baby.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was letting the side down having a baby. I was supposed to be this career woman. It's sad, isn't it?
No, that's real.
It was real.
Yeah.
And but I used to do the numbers for one of my bosses, and there was something important going down, and I was asked to go into a board meeting. And I was on maternity leave. Not that there was a big maternity leave. It was only 6 weeks. So I was 2 weeks in, and I was breastfeeding. And I said, "I'll come, but if the baby needs feeding, I'll be feeding."
Yeah.
And he said yes.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment I thought, well, actually, he does need me. I am valuable. And just because I had that maternal instinct at that time, that must have been just on overload.
Yeah.
I just said this was the fact.
Yeah.
And actually I'd said it out loud before I'd even tried to stop myself saying it.
Yeah.
Too late, but actually it was all okay.
Absolutely.
So it was those instances that made me feel it's okay to be yourself. But it's taken me a long, long time.
Do you actually, that's an interesting point you made about, you know, sort of censoring yourself and not having the time to. Do you think that almost sometimes our own insecurities and imposter syndrome about, we're going to get caught out, hinders us from actually being accepted, because that is what people's general inkling is to do? If you set the precedent for something, people won't normally say no.
There's another example.
Yeah, please.
I just picked up a job. I didn't realise that I was the first female leader of a major tech company in the UK. And as I changed, you know, the kids were growing, got 3 kids, and always asked to go out to corporate events. And I was unusual. I was a female. There weren't many of us. So I was getting probably more invitations than I otherwise would have had.
At that point, that was the diversity quota. You have one female, you've sorted it, you've nailed it.
Let's get it in.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, I don't do corporate events on the weekend unless I can bring one of the family. And the people, okay, it was the first one. And my eldest, because it went in that order, I used to take them order, you know, number 1, number 2, number 3, and then start again. And the first one, Royal Ascot, Prince of Wales, the king as he is now, polo event. He struck really lucky.
Oh God! If your firstborn is not eternally grateful for an opportunity like that's amazing.
But I was embarrassed, even though I'd sort of set my own limits.
Right.
I was wondering whether I'd overcalled it. And, you know, I told my son to be on best behaviour. And, you know, probably put too much stress into this. He had a lovely time, by the way. But, but you know, I added stress into the system that wasn't necessary. I learned from that.
Yeah.
But I also learned that if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
Or somebody has the option to say no. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
So, but these were little steps on that journey. And I had to fight with myself to answer your question.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sometimes what I think, not to the, you know, say that it's our own doing that we don't have an inclusive workplace. Like, there's a multitude of reasons for that, but sometimes I do wonder if we do get in our own way of it, and we, you know, we're lucky that we're coming into a more supportive working environment where there are more working mothers. It's much more, you know, in your case, you were just more ashamed of even being the only woman who'd have to, you know, breastfeed, but maybe sometimes I get in my own head and I really see that if I took a step back and just said, you're not asking for anything unreasonable, it's a little bit of flexibility around this to feel included in a particular project, that people would be more than willing to.
And you know, one of the things I'm keen on is emphasizing is, generally speaking, it's not always the case, but generally speaking, it's all about outcomes. So if you work for an organization, it's about the outcome they expect from you.
Right.
You may have some sales goals, you may have some support goals, you may, whatever the goals are, that's what you're really employed to. How long you take to do it, or if you do it in a flexible way or a condensed way, or part-time way, actually, generally speaking, management don't care.
Yeah.
It's about, do you do it? Do you do it in a style that's acceptable? And just get the job done, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have a job to communicate that it's okay. I might not be visible today, but I'm working tonight, and the job will get done.
Yeah.
And actually, when it happens a few times, people stop. Not only do they stop asking, they stop wondering.
Yeah.
They know that you're going to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to get. But it's a deal. Is that you're employed or you run your business for outcomes. So don't lose sight of the outcome.
Yeah.
And then make sure that if we had a conversation about, do you know, Rakhi, I'm going to get this done, but I've got a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
You probably just say, sure.
Sure, absolutely. My first thought was just like, absolutely great.
Yeah, great,
Yeah.
great.
As long as we get the job done. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I'm just almost a little bit like, you know, the personal experiences that you've had along the way have obviously shaped you, being able to articulate it in that way. I'm actually curious to hear, what are some of the pitfalls that you've gone through when you know you haven't felt included, or you know you haven't felt that inclusion?
Well, they still happen. And by the way, I make errors as well.
Yeah.
So I'm still a learner. I guess. I mean, how many times I've been told to man up is how many times. I mean, there was one mistake I made. Let's say over the last 10 years, I always used to have a crate of champagne in the office.
Yeah.
And if somebody did a really, really good job, and they went the extra mile, I'd get the champagne out, and it was a thank you.
Oh, that's
it was
lovely.
a recognition. But actually, there are some people who don't drink alcohol.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I was thinking this is pretty special.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not inclusive.
Yeah.
If I think about some of I'm going back a little bit. The type of review bars I was invited to, because actually they were really inviting the team that was largely male, and there was one female, and I would feel really awkward about that.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen so often now, but really inappropriate, very uncomfortable. Let me just think. I guess I can think about some. If I go back, probably 20 years now, I remember I was being employed. I was going for an interview, and somebody was just asked me, you know, am I having a relationship with the boss? Is that why you've got the got the interview? And
I
actually,
hate that that's happened to you, because it's happened. That's really disheartening, because that hasn't stopped. You know, just the questioning of how you've got there. You know,
what was interesting was, and I appreciated in one respect, he asked the question out loud
and directly, rather than thinking it.
Rather than think, because I had the opportunity there. I was so infuriated. But you know, I guess that's taught me, if people have got things that they're thinking, my job is to get that fishing rod out again, and find out what their objections are, or what's really on their mind.
Yeah.
Because best to have that conversation openly.
Absolutely. And I think that helps your own confidence as well, because if you're dealing with straight shooters who, even, you know, for all their weaknesses, they're saying the wrong thing, they're completely inappropriate, completely off, but then you know what you're dealing with. Sometimes when you're assuming what people are thinking, or double thinking that, oh God, if they look at me this way, then it's going to be, you know, reviewed like this, and I shouldn't say that, you're just doing yourself a disservice, because you're not shooting straight and actually coming to that, you know, you keep going back to the outcome.
Yes.
How can you get there if people aren't, you know, singing from the same hymn sheet?
But you know, you get a feeling as well, don't you?
Yeah.
There are sometimes
yeah.
if people aren't being a straight shooter and they're not being candid,
Yeah.
then do you want that relationship, you know, an employment relationship or a partner in relationship, whatever it is, you just trust your instinct. Because my view is instincts are a collection of facts.
Yeah.
They're not nebulous. They're just not structured yet.
Yeah.
You just feel it.
Yeah.
Trust your instinct.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, I mean, I think I asked this question in the last talk that you gave. And as much as you say that, you know, people have also been, you know, experiences that you've had and the people have been a deterrent when it comes to you feeling included and inclusive, you've also spoken very highly about the people along the way and the journey that have really contributed to you feeling like your voice is valid and you are valid and you're bringing that contribution. Do you want to speak to the importance of being a mentor or finding those mentors?
And yes, so the first thing I would say is that back then I thought having a mentor, this is going back quite a few years now, was a sign of failure, that I needed the help.
Right.
The second thing is I was lacking trust. I didn't know whether these mentors would actually keep things confidential. So, for example, if I was feeling insecure, would they report it back? And then I'd feel more insecure. What a mistake. The job is really to benefit from other people's experiences. That's definitely one of the benefits. The other benefit is just sometimes just talking out loud.
Yeah.
Getting it off your chest actually takes it off the agenda, so you can concentrate on the things that are important. You realize just by talking it out that actually these are minor things, and you can put them in that category. And the other I do make a difference between sponsorship. There are people out there who are prepared to sponsor you because they think you're good, or they think that you've got more to give. The lovely two-way benefit of that is that they get something out of it. One, people genuinely like it. Good people like to see other people do well. Yeah. And also you have a responsibility to back. You're not going to let them down. You're really going to deliver for them because they give you that trust. Yeah. So it sort of it lifts you up so that you are walking taller than you would otherwise. So go for it. I definitely believe that you'll have people out there, whether they're mates, good friends, as well as in the organisational structure, that can help you take advantage of it. Go looking for them.
Yeah, it's the go looking for them part that I think some people get, you know, how to look for a mentor. And, you know, my thing is I've got a wonderful network of people and I've got such close friends, but sometimes, you know, speaking candidly, it does sometimes feel like if they're in my age group or going through a similar situation, it's like the blind leading the blind, because we're just all sitting there complaining about a certain series of events or how we don't feel included or we don't, you know, but like you said, there's a lack of the outcome because we're all in this together. And it feels like that solidarity of a real friendship and a bonding over it, but not necessarily the mentorship of here's how you solve this particular problem or tackle it, if you see the difference.
There are two. So there's definitely coaching. So I'll come back to the middle. When you pick a mentor, you need somebody who will support you, so you feel is on your side, but actually will challenge you. So it's good support challenge. Somebody who says, well, you know, I think you could do better, Trudy. Did you do it that way? Let's talk about it. Was it the best way? Did you have other options? So really able to challenge you. Being nicey all the time doesn't help you develop.
Absolutely.
You want somebody who's going to push you. Coaching, definitely look for people who've been there, done it. Yeah. So different between a mentor, I would say, and a coach, and then a sponsor, is coaches generally they've been there, they've done it, and if they haven't been and done that specific thing, they know enough to ask you enough questions to start probing an issue. And it is, you do, in order to find those individuals, in your everyday engagements, you'll find somebody who will think, do you know what, I like working with this one, they think differently, and I like to learn from them. Right. then go and ask them.
Yeah.
And they may say, well, I've got a list of people, I haven't got time. And then you ask the question, can I come back to you in 6 months?
Yeah.
And so don't necessarily take no for an answer.
Yeah.
People have got pressures and they're busy.
Absolutely.
And if they genuinely say no, well, that's a no. Then go knock the next one.
The next one.
They're in life. You will every day. You'll think of somebody who's given you a little bit of a seed that you think, oh, they relax you or they sharpen you.
Yeah.
And you can learn from them.
Yeah.
So go ask.
Go ask them, yeah. And I think that point around coaching, mentoring, and sponsorship is something that I hadn't even considered. I sort of lumped all of them together. So actually hearing the differentiators between them is probably something that other people will find really helpful, because it's something that, oh, I want to look for a mentor. Well, what in essence does that mean? Is that someone who can guide me and coach me through my career? Is that someone who can just provide a lending ear? You know, it's the differentiator.
And it is, and it's being again clear what you want from that relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it's just you want to relax, you want to feel good, you just want to re-establish an even keel. That's okay.
Yeah,
it's a good outcome.
Yeah,
but that's your outcome.
Yeah.
If it is about getting the next job, that's a different outcome.
Yeah.
If it's about getting an idea across. Okay, well, it's all about that clarity. And let me say, the other thing that comes out of this is, don't think that you're doing all the asking.
Yeah.
Because when you're a mentor or a coach or a sponsor, you do get something back. And we all are feeling like we're asking for something. And, and we're not necessarily giving. You always are. A mentor takes great pride and joy from seeing somebody develop.
Yeah.
A really good mentor enjoys the process. A sponsor I've explained about, often coaches are, they would otherwise be teachers.
Yeah.
Right? They just get joy of seeing people take an idea and run in with it.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, before I came here today, somebody reached out to me.
Oh, really?
And then right at the end, he asked me how the family was. And I was telling him about my daughter. He said, oh, I've got a great idea for you.
Oh,
that
really?
might help her. There you go. Came up from nowhere. I didn't go looking for that.
Yeah.
But there's always something, because you if you cast a net back to the fishing, something comes back.
Yeah.
It invariably does. It may take years.
Yeah.
It may take days.
Yeah.
I mean, it does.
It does, but no, that and then what they bring out is the best in you, which of course creates that inclusivity that we're talking about. And then we get to a place where everyone is feeling their most confident self and like they're able to bring something to the table, which inevitably will enhance the business performance of any company if everyone's coming with their, without any insecurities and just there to do a good job. But I mean, there are slight blockers to it. Like my first thing is when you talked about the parenting element of it and, your experience with coming back in 2 weeks after giving birth is quite something. I mean, for working parents, I'm thinking mostly from a woman's perspective, because just being completely candid, it is very much, you're all seen as detrimental still to a woman's progression in terms of their career if they decide to have a family. Your experience has been utterly different. So I just want to kind of hear your experience and hear how you've remained remained part of the conversation whilst raising 3 kids. Like, that's amazing.
I guess, the first thing to say, and I know we've talked about this before, is people think of it as a woman's problem. I do agree with you. Largely, women are carers as well as if they're workers, they have a full-time job or part-time job. So that is the fact, but we don't have to accept that. And I think bit by bit we can make this a parent's problem. I don't like that word either.
No. So we can solutionize the yes, yeah.
And I think by allowing men to play a bigger role, more and more they are stepping into the space because they want to, and societal norms have held them back, which isn't fair either.
True.
And if I think about, I remember when I was head of Sun Microsystems, that was the company I was leading. I thought I'm going to introduce part-time working. I was thinking I was going to do this for females.
Yeah.
And change things, because I was in a position to change things.
Yeah.
The biggest uptake was men.
Wow.
Now, I don't know whether it always was, but when the gates opened,
Yeah.
the people who applied first were largely men.
Wow.
I know, it's interesting, isn't it?
That is very interesting.
Now, it may be that women were watching to see
get one to do it first, then we'll all follow afterwards or something. Yeah.
Whatever it is, but actually we can give license, if that's the right word, to everybody to play the part. The other thing is, parental duties are hard work.
Yeah.
They're joyous too. So for me, it was my greatest joy. And people may say, really, but you kept on working. Well, that's who makes Trudy up.
Yeah.
My greatest joy. And my husband and I, we were both working when the three came along.
Yeah.
And we were sort of doing this in sort of, and there came a time when he said, look, I'm going to stand back while you take this new role.
Yeah.
And then I'll go back.
Yeah.
He became the main carer.
Yeah.
He, so valuable. Great role model.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we all can be role models. It's about making sure that we nudge and say, is this what you want to do?
Yeah.
And the more people who take parental leave, men and women, same-sex couples, whatever, the better. Because it's not always easy looking after kids when they're wailing and crying, and you don't know because you're new to this.
Yeah.
There's an appreciation, and you grow. My biggest growth as a manager and as a leader was becoming a mum, because I had this little one, and I had to take him in that instance, on his journey.
Yeah.
If I could do that for that little one, what could I do in the workplace?
Yeah.
And so I've constantly cross-pollinated what I learned as a mum.
Yeah. What's really stood out to me is that you are such a creature of learning, and you do take learning and change it into actionable steps to make change and impact. And that's, I think, sometimes where we're our own worst enemy, because I love learning. I get so much joy from listening to other people and hearing their experiences, but sometimes it's almost like what you've done is really say, I'm going to use this, but I'm going to also replicate this or use elements of what I've gained here as a mother in my managerial career. It's sometimes really like, what's your process behind doing that and going, oh, it's not just a siloed, I'm a mother, I'm a manager. How do you do that?
I don't know is the answer.
No, I need the secret sauce, Trudy. Tell me, please. But it's amazing.
It's interesting. I'm very lucky. There's a team of which I was a part in Microsoft.
Yeah.
And I was the leader there. I say that quietly because I think, I may have been more senior than everybody else.
Right.
But actually it was the team who delivered. It wasn't me. And I loved seeing them develop. We've just come back from a few days away as an old team. After all these years, which must be 12 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
Somebody taught me how to forage for mushrooms. It was in the forests of Finland. Somebody taught me how to go from a sauna into a cold lake.
Did you do the freezing cold lake? Oh my God. Well, we'll pick this up offline. Sorry, everyone.
But the point is that you can learn.
Yeah.
But it's about being open.
Yeah.
And then, and being, I think perhaps if there is a secret sauce, I'm not sure there is genuinely you want the best for that little baby. And if you can genuinely put your ego to one side and say, I want the best for this person in an organisational setup, it works. That transfers. And when you want that, you grow.
Right.
Because it's not about all giving. You take what they know, but and you value in them, and you learn and you grow. So it's that constant curiosity to want, are there ways to do this better? Certainly at a human level. I love that.
Yeah.
And then if you can, if it's got a big enough scale, you put a system in place. I'm not a process person, but do I appreciate it?
Yeah.
So once you do get something that's working,
Yeah.
like in institute part-time working, then yes, you want to make it at scale because it works.
Yeah.
So you only then do you put it in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good, actually. I think how I'm always curious, because I think I said this to you before as well. I've been at companies where I don't understand how they don't put any emphasis on fostering that inclusivity or bringing out the best in people or really nurturing their staff. How do you think organizations, maybe even just a general rule of thumb, even some simple steps, can take to make a workplace more inclusive, well-being, initiatives, anything like that? How do you feel like you've seen it best done?
Definitely have an opportunity for listening, and I mean proper listening.
Yeah.
It's so many years ago, I was a head of marketing, believe it or not, and I was taught the power of needs. Make sure that you meet your customers' needs, but actually you will differentiate yourself if you meet their unmet needs that they don't know that they've got. So and you can't ask somebody what your unmet needs are because they don't know. But if you observe that they're always rushing for the bus or they're always late in your terms, why not ask it in an open way? Hey, I've noticed that it's always a bit of a difficult time you're getting in for 9 o'clock. Is there something
that we can do to
and they may say, well, actually it's nothing to do with time, it's I just can't get my badge to work. Sometimes it's trite, but I say that just to say it's not always as easy as saying that, but creating vehicles for listening and then acting, right? But check, so you listen, you think this is what you've understood, go back and say, this is what I think. If you put all these things together, what do you think about if we did something like this? May want to pilot it. But you definitely have to go, listen hard, feed it back, test it, and then systemize it. If it's working after the pilot. But it's all about action, which is where we came in.
Absolutely.
It's about making the action and then review it. You've got to review, am I getting the outcome that I want?
And I mean, I guess I have a query from, your time as a manager versus your time on boards. What are the differences between inclusivity conversations and how you address the topic or theme of inclusivity and diversity from a managerial position of just, or not just, but a team or that type of thing, or actually going in and sitting on a board of trustees somewhere? How does that differ?
I mean, I do the same thing. I always try and get to know the individual and their ambitions and their measures, because when you're on a board, people have different motivations. So they've got different needs. So I really do spend a lot of time. When you're on boards, a lot of time goes over to governance. So there are certain basics that you have to get done to make sure that you're running an organisation properly, efficiently, and effectively, and have the power to actually step up and make it even better. So there's a different agenda, different outcome, but I can't see there being a difference in approach. However, when you're on a board or you're in a leadership position, I believe you have a responsibility to make sure that you role model the behavior, because it's about behaviors. It's not about what you say. It's about behaviors that you could be challenged on. If somebody doesn't like the way you behave, be open to listening. You may disagree, but actually you may have something to learn too. But ultimately, different agenda, but you have to role model. And when you're in a leadership position, you have a responsibility to put programs in place. I talked about my work with WISE, women in science, getting more women to reach their potential because they think this isn't a role for them. Well, that's not true. You just want to give them the option to consider it. Then let's talk about it. I mean, when we had our last session, it was really, I got a lot out of it. And what I could see is people needed that. So, and then we talked about mentorship and the LGBT plus community.
Yeah.
So there are lots of things that we can take actions on.
Yeah.
I'm not one for one-off interventions. Great to have a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to be here. I want to know what else you want me to do, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really keen that if Kubrick wants to do something, I'll play my part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one-off interventions, useful, but nowhere near as useful as a systemic program in pursuit of an outcome.
Yeah, it's the
by
small.
including everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, just look around us. I mean, how talented are these people? I mean, genuinely.
Yeah.
Genuinely. It's just an extraordinary, capable. If we got 1% more out of these highly talented, capable people who are already delivering,
Yeah.
we'd be, everybody'd be happier.
Oh, I agree.
Outcomes-
I agree. Oh my God, like you've just hit. Honestly, it's just like ding, 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 ding. I can't tell you. Like I see so much just potential, and I love what you said about it's not about a one come in noisy, make a big noise about it, and then leave and no one hears anything. It's that quiet, continual hammering in of the same message that's consistent across the board of let's bring new ideas to the table and let's foster an environment of inclusivity, but just continually talk about it. That affects more change in the long run, right?
So absolutely.
Yeah.
And it never stops.
And it never stops, right?
It never
That's
stops.
the beauty of it. It just never stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We keep on learning, we keep on growing. And when you keep on growing as an individual, you do as an organisation, and the impact. The shadow you cast is big. And I believe we have a responsibility to cast a shadow so others can shine.
Yeah. I knew that I'd be inspired by this podcast. I almost don't want to share that you, but the rest of everyone else, I want to keep you for myself. But this has honestly been one of the most incredible insights into just how we can action little things, whether it's changing the voice in our head, telling us not to voice certain things, or, being a part of the conversation and not just coming in with a bang and then leaving. There's so many, are there any last minute helpful hints and tips for just anyone working and feeling a little bit left out or not sure how to ask for something or ask for a promotion or ask to be included in something because it's a bit above their pay grade? Any last minute hints and tips to get that, feeling in yourself?
You've just given me a visual cue. Is if somebody's doing this, frowning, looking quizzical, or they don't, then ask them, you look a bit quizzical. Put a smile on your face when you ask, so it's not threatening.
Yeah.
And ask.
Yeah.
Or if you see somebody who, there are so many people who are quiet in meetings. What I've found is the quiet people are listening better than anybody else.
Yes.
So ask them what they're thinking. Or if people are good at things, say, you're really good at this. Would you mind doing whatever?
Yeah.
But it is about keep on drawing out. And if somebody says to, oh, enough, Trudy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine too. But at least they know that you genuinely are trying to get everybody on the table.
Yeah.
And if they say enough already, the table's set.
Yeah.
The team's ready to team and collaborate and bring out the best in each other. That's great.
Yeah.
So keep on being quizzical, curious, listening hard, and ask. So what are we driving at?
Yeah.
What are we looking for?
Yeah.
Can we come back to there and see if we're actually making progress? And learn the bad stuff as well as the good stuff. And my last point to you on this question, if this is you, I don't know, is when am I coming back? Because it's not a one-off intervention.
Absolutely. I honestly have about 20,000 other questions for you, but I think this is a really nice time for us to have a part 2. Like you said, it's about continuing the conversation. So I don't want to ask everything now. I have so much more to dive into with you, and I hope everyone has got as much out of this conversation as I have done. It's been an absolute privilege. Thank you so much for joining.
I feel a fraud again, going back to the younger me. But I shouldn't.
Not
And
at
thank
all.
you. I thank you so much.
Oh, no,
I've
thank
really,
you.
really. It's like Desert Island Discs. You know?
I do, you know, that's my dad's absolute favourite. I've had to download about 15 episodes for him to listen to on the plane. He absolutely loves it. Well, I fulfilled my dad's dream of hosting Desert Island Discs. So thank you, Trudy, and I hope everyone has got as much out of this as I have. Tune in next time where we will be talking to another guest and getting some more diverse insights from various people. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.